This is Horror Podcast.
Welcome to This is Horror, a podcast for readers, writers, and creators. I'm Michael David Wilson, and every episode alongside my co-host Bob Pastorella, we chat with the world's best writers about writing, life lessons, creativity, and much more. Now, today's episode is a little bit different because instead of chatting with one person, we are chatting to three people. And instead of chatting about a range of topics, we are focusing mostly on one movie, Touch Me, a psychosexual horror comedy about the nature of codependent friendships and how far we are willing to go for a slice of happiness. Now, today's guests are Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, whose production company Rustic Films put out Touch Me, and a wonderful writer and director of Touch Me, Addison Heimann. I always believe my job as an interviewer is to step back and let the person I'm talking to shine and let them do as much of the talking as possible. Never has that been more apparent than in this conversation. Indeed, the chemistry between Justin, Aaron, and Addison is so uniquely special that often I didn't even have to say anything and they would just spiral off one another. So, get ready for a real treat of an episode. But before any of that, a quick advert break.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio. From the host of This is Horror Podcast comes a dark thriller of obsession, paranoia, and voyeurism. After relocating to a small coastal town, Brian discovers a hole that gazes into his neighbor's bedroom. Every night she dances and he peeps. Same song, same time, same wild and mesmerizing dance. But soon Brian suspects he's not the only one watching, and she's not the only one being watched. They're Watching is The Wicker Man meets Body Double with a splash of Suspiria. They're Watching by Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorella is available from thisishorror.co.uk, Amazon, and wherever good books are sold.
Okay, with that said, here it is. It is Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead, and Addison Heimann on This is Horror. Justin, Aaron, Addison, welcome to This is Horror.
Hello, glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Woo!
So, to begin with, I want to know, what were your first experiences with stories, and when did you know this was the industry that you wanted to work in?
Oh, I've actually never been asked what's your early experiences with stories, but weirdly, I have an answer that leaps to mind. My dad would make up stories to tell me to put me and my sister to sleep, and they were very big, fanciful sci-fi stories. It only happened like 5 times, but they were like, you should write them down, kind of like as if he had the whole thing planned out. They are in-depth stories, not just like made up nursery rhyme kind of stuff. We were probably old enough to that would not have been fun. Like 8, 9, 10, something like that. And he made up a story about a guy who learned how to travel through the electrical circuits, through the electrical current. made a great time travel story. He made a really good one about a chubby kid who learned to believe in himself, which was obviously aimed towards myself as a child. And it was just like really, really cool stuff. And I just realized, I bet that's exactly where the penchant for storytelling comes from.
Did you know your father kind of fused Shocker by Wes Craven, Back to the Future, and kind of Stand By Me?
I can't imagine these are entirely original ideas. Probably like a lot of H.G. Wells that I hadn't read yet, Yeah.
Ask you go next, and then I'll go.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's just do like 1, 2, 3. Like you two answer, then I'll answer. Although I do always want to interrupt because I have ADHD. But mine's like the fucking like normal gay kid shit. Like I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and I was just like, yeah, I want to go to there. I wish it was like more original. Like I wish I found this like niche, like underground movie, but it was like Donnie Darko and Buffy and X-Files and I always kind of wanted to do that. And then when I was in playwriting school, I kept writing movies where there were like dragons. And then in theater, they're like, you can't do dragons, right? And this was like before, they did dragons on stage, pre-dragon, as it were. And I was like, oh shit, I should make movies. And that's kind of my like storytelling stuff, because I never allowed myself to be a writer because my dad was a lawyer and my mom was an engineer, and they're like, you do this. And I was like, yeah. And then I realized I didn't want to because I wasn't smart in that way. I'm very dumb, but also very smart in certain ways. But, I couldn't like put together a chip like my mom could. So that's kind of how I discovered it.
Addison, I think you would put together chips really well. And
listen, now with Google, not ChatGPT, because I don't want to waste any more water than we have to. But yeah, through it's like a sweet little YouTube video. I spent hours maybe.
My story is, it's a pretty good one. It won't be as good as Addison's or Aaron's, but it never is. So my mother, who's no longer with us, she had her first child when she was like 15 years old, and it was the 60s. And so back then, this whole thing, she was sent away for like a home for unwed mothers. She gave the child up for adoption. But that child is my brother, who's 11 years older than me, and we have the same mother and father. And he came and he contacted us, and I met him when I was 7 and he was 18 years old, and he showed up with a stack of Stephen King books and gave them to me. And it changed I would not be sitting here now had we not been raised in different families and he had not shown up at meeting my brother when he's 18 and I'm 7 with a stack of Stephen King books.
That's so, it's so weird. Obviously that one has a lot more emotion behind it, but I just remembered when I was in Tennessee on vacation in the mountains, and my cousin was describing to my mom the story of the gunslinger. Yeah. And I was like, that sounds so cool. And he's like, you are way too young to read this. And it just stuck with me. And I was like, I want to read that so bad. And then got to, and it's one of the best stories ever told.
Yeah.
What was your first Stephen King novel? Because mine was strange because it was Dreamcatcher. And that, I don't know, like with the alien, like shitting out of the butthole. Yeah.
So my that stack my brother brought, The Gunslinger was among them. That remains his favorite of all of them. But he also gave me Salem's Lot, and there was basically a book of novellas. Is it called 4 Past Midnight? Something like that. It's 4 short stories. It's got Needful Things in it. I know. And the Black Dog and.
Needful Things has got to be standalone because the book is like this thick, isn't it?
Is it?
But no. But there's one just maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm probably mixing it up. Yeah. But it was one of the anthologies, and it was also Skeleton Crew, another anthology. Is the other one Night Shift?
Mm-hmm.
It was basically all the anthologies up to that point. Yeah. Salem's Lot, Gunslinger, and it was the one that had the beautiful paintings. In the picture, they had the illustrations within the text.
Yeah, Roland holding the rose
at sunset.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good question, guy. I love that. What's our first experience with storytelling? That's great.
Yeah, and just this idea of you're 7 years old and you're being presented with a stack of Stephen King books. I kind of wish that happened to all of us. I mean, what an initiation into story.
Yeah, it was a stack of Stephen King books, and it was a mixtape cassette tape that had like a lot of like what they would play like alternative rock stations at the time. Like it was like everything from Social Distortion to Pet Shop Boys to Depeche Mode to The Cure to Peter Murphy. So it's like all that like radio play kind of good alternative rock. Some mixtape full. So I was just listening to that tape, reading a lot of Stephen King. And it's to this day when I hear Duran Duran, I think of Stephen King.
I mean, it's a straight line.
It's straight line, yeah.
Kind of is. I don't know what it is. Duran Duran is the Stephen King of the music world in a weird way. Like, kind of is there. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't just get a kind of long lost brother. You got an education.
Yeah. He came to see Aaron and I speak at Comic-Con in 2017, around the time The Endless was coming out. We were on this panel. Apparently they asked me on the panel, like my first horror movie was or something. And he's like, "You lied up there." And I was like, "I didn't lie." I don't totally remember, but the truth was that he had rented me The Exorcist and Evil Dead 2. And I was so afraid of Evil Dead 2. I couldn't watch anything else. And he's like, and it was like, "Oh, cause I was so young. I didn't even understand it was comedy." You know, like I just thought it was I thought Evil Dead 2 was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I see it as an adult. Like, this is like some of the best physical comedy ever done in cinema.
And so, I mean, all of this begs the question. These were the first stories that you heard, but what was the first story that you wrote?
Oh,
Addison
man.
has to go first.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the I wasn't writing when I was a kid. I mean, unless we count, I remember being in 5th grade, and this actually is probably better than me actually telling the story about how I wrote the play about dragons. I was in 5th grade, and there was like, I don't know if everybody had to do this, but they gave you like basically a blank picture book, and you had to flip, and then you had to write your own story and then draw the pictures in the picture book. This guy, this elementary school kid, wrote, won the prize for like best thing, but like wrote a story about like people, like kids on an island that, had to, survive a supernatural source. I think we had just read Lord of the Flies, and so of course I did the same thing, but he was like one of those kids that are like, is a drawer, or like, or his like mom did it, who knows, but he was a drawer and I was not. So we had similar stories kind of based off of that. I wrote kind of the same thing, same vibes. And he won the prize, and everybody told me that I sucked, and especially my drawing sucked. And that was my first, experience with critics. And I was like, and I got through it. And I was like, if I can get through the pain of this, then I can deal with Twitter. And so that kind of thinking, all the way back, I was prepared. But yeah, I still to this day only draw stick figures. My, for Touch Me and also all the movies I make, all my storyboards are literal stick figures because I am very bad at that. But funnily enough, they do help convey it regardless. So good for me.
Dude, Addison, you should generally be proud of that, because I literally can't even use stick figures to draw a storyboard. Like, I just can't.
No, I've seen you do it.
Like I'm literally incapable of expressing an idea as a storyboard. Aaron's good at it. Aaron's good at bad drawing.
No, what I can do, what I'm good at is I draw it live in front of you, and I say, this is a head, right? Okay, these are shoulders. This is the horizon. But if I don't do that, it's just like, what the hell is this thing?
Literally, I feel like I drew a nose bleeding, and no one could understand what that was. And I was like, it's a nose. And they're like, you have to understand that does not look like a nose. It kind of looks like, a chest with very strange nipples. And I was like, no, but they're bleeding. Like, this is like, it's a nose, So yeah, if it's any indication of how bad these are.
I just remembered, I couldn't tell you what the first story I wrote was. But the earliest one that I can remember that can make an interesting story is, there was this writing competition in 6th grade called Florida Writes, where I'm from, of course. And the question that you were supposed to answer was, what is Florida without citrus? I think it was probably sponsored by Sunkist or something, And I made up this story where I won the competition. I made up this story about, do you guys remember the medfly crisis? So I remember I made up this story about medflies mating with another type of fly, that then this hybrid fly would plant its eggs in the oranges, and it made the oranges hallucinogenic. And thus oranges became illegal. And I spent half the essay setting up this like sci-fi idea, and then the other half talking about like what Florida then looked like without citrus. And I don't know, I didn't, obviously care that much about whether or not Florida had citrus. I was just really wanting to get this medfly idea out.
Dude, if you told me that's what Upstream Color is about, I'd be like, I guess so. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's like pretty sophisticated, man.
Yeah,
Like,
thank you. No, I was proud of it. I think that's why it won. I think they were like, well, that's not the question we asked, but that was pretty cool.
So what you're saying is I wrote a shitty Stephen King like ripoff, and then in 6th grade you won a contest for how good your writing is. So you're saying you're better than me.
I've still been trotting that out every time anyone asks me if I'm good at anything.
Yeah.
I trot that out. I just bring it back out. Been riding that Florida rights.
I just want some of the oranges. That's all.
Yeah. It was like I remember the opening sentence was something like, Florida oranges are delicious, sweet, ... and illegal.
Honestly, if that was the first line of a book, I would go, well, now I have to read the rest of it.
I know, exactly.
You hooked me. Yeah.
I'm turning the pages.
Yeah.
what's funny is like I was like thinking back, and I was like, oh, in high school, in the very occasional time I would put any effort in, I do remember I wrote something that a teacher told one of my parents about, that they're like, oh, he might have a talent at something, despite barely passing his class. I was like, you might be have like a little thing here. There might be a little grain of something. I'm sure it wasn't great, but but then I got into college and I got really into it. But I will say, like, I think I blocked it out because I think everything I wrote was like a bad Chuck Palahniuk ripoff.
Oh, we all went through that.
Okay.
Phase. Yeah, that's okay. Addison, you had a Chuck Palahniuk ripoff phase?
Yeah, I know who that is. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember loving, like, thinking up a really pithy societal, a pithy societal observation and repeating it every once in a while and being like, that's pretty cool. That's how you write.
Read Survivor and was like, I could do that.
It was just like, parking is the gasoline of the new millennium or whatever. I don't know.
And then to kind of fast forward to when you all met. Well, not all of you, because Aaron and Justin met way before. But as I understand it, Addison's film Hypochondriac and then Something in the Dirt were playing a lot of the same festivals. So is that how you met, or did something precede that?
We actually met way before that. Addison probably doesn't remember. We met at Cucaloris, remember?
Mm-hmm. I remember we hung out at Cucaloris.
Yeah. I doubt Addison remembers. It was like years before. We met at Cucaloris.
Yeah, years before. Yeah. We totally met, and I'm the one who forgot. But then we got to, the fun thing is, we were lucky enough to have the same distributor and have movies the same year. Theirs was at Sundance, mine was at South by, and we like got to know each other in Switzerland, of all places. There's this like beautiful festival called Neuchâtel that's a genre festival that like is in a mountain town, like right in front of a lake. And we had the same distributor, so we all got put in a room, and they were shooting Loki, I believe, at the time, so got to pop over for the weekend, and just like, it was dope. Like, I got to see their movie, they got to see mine, and I'd known their producer Dave Lawson a bit, like maybe they met 3 or 4 months ago, but like they were just, Justin and Aaron have this thing, it's like make movies with friends. Like they talk it, they have stickers. You can find them in LA everywhere, and like we became friends, and that's how it started. And then it wasn't until like a year later, I just sent them a script. I sent them the script to just get notes. Cause I was like, I don't know. And you're like, not even thinking that this would be like anything that they would jive with, because like it was, yes, it had aliens, and yes, they had tentacles in spring. My favorite part of the movie. But like, and their notes were just so strong and smart and interesting. When I like started going out with it, like I, messaged them, and I remember I was washing dishes, and like, I had met with Dave just to talk about it. It's like, listen, I'm your friends. Like, there's no big deal. Like, I just like think like, potentially this could be something we could work on together. And then I didn't think much of it because like, only so many movies can get made. And then I got accosted by them via a phone call while I was washing dishes. All of a sudden Dave calls me. He's like, "Oh, by the way, you're on the call with Justin and Aaron." And I was like, "Oh, great." Just like a very, very lovely little like moment of like not realizing that I was essentially being interviewed, but like I was also trying to focus on washing dishes. I could have stopped washing dishes. That was never something that needed to happen. But they basically were like, "Okay, like, why do you want to work with us?" And I was just like, "'Cause I like you guys." I probably was a little more somewhat intelligent in that sense, but the real honesty was just like, I really respect the things that they do, and I really love the work that they put out. And while this is like a little bit more like oddball weird than that, I think I given how specific they are in crafting story, I was like, this I think can make sense, and I think like together we could craft something really cool. And they were like, "Okay, cool." And then they hung up, and I was like, huh. And then like it was so casual. Then like Dave was like, "All right, we're gonna make a movie," and I was like, "What?" And then that just kind of kept going from there. So it was it's funny, you go to these festivals and you have goals of making friends, and you don't really think about the aftermath of it, because I find that that's like the least helpful thing to do, because then you're just anxious the whole time. But making genuine connections tends to move and move, not career, but like it ends up, you find your people. And I always talk about like finding my freaks, because while I never think my movies are weird, other people do. And so I think like, when you find people who actually like believe in you and get your message and trust you, it made perfect sense for me on my side to like be involved with these two, and based off their immense like just like generosity on helping other artists, and also just because they're cool dudes who know sci-fi.
There's something really special about reading a script and finding it to be electric and funny and all of that, and also immediately realizing 2 pages in that you're like, "Oh, we could never do that. This is singular. This is a point of view we could never have." And also it's like, I think when it comes to things that are lean more like horror comedy, it's things we're fans of, but we never endeavor to do ourselves really. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it was really special to get to participate in any way. And from page one, that script like really leaps off the page. Like it truly is like, it's like you can feel the energy of him creating it.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And that's very rare in the motion picture industry. Usually by the time you read something, anything singular or bold, or has been kind of like weeded
it's like
out.
Gone through the cheese grater. Yeah. And our production company with Dave Lawson is called Rustic Films. And one of the things that we do at Rustic is that we don't work with filmmakers that really actually need our help. It's if they want some help and they feel like, we can fill in the gaps, but it's not like, "Hey, let us shepherd you. We know how to fix your story. We know how to do all that." Really, for us, it's really like nuts and bolts. Like, "Hey, do you have a sound mixer? Okay, we know a good sound mixer that can make this work." "Hey, is your budget balanced? We can figure out where the fat might be and make that work out." It's really boots on the ground. And of course, we give notes and we offer our opinions. The filmmaker always has final cut at Rustic, but and it's also just a bandwidth thing. Is like we are filmmakers ourselves. Dave is a filmmaker himself. For us, it's like we just need a project that doesn't need our help in order to be good. It just needs our help in order to be made. And so with Addison as a personality and his script with Touch Me, it was just like, oh yeah, if we can help this get birthed, then lucky all of us.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was gonna make an alien joke, but now it's past because I've told you about it, and so now I feel like I'm just gonna, maybe I'll make it later and like act like I just made it up. But
cool.
I think
cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I like that, because now there's going to be a tension throughout. It's like the ticking time clock, but in fact, it is the ticking alien joke. So we don't even know when it's going to turn up, but it sure as hell is.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the Hitchcockian alien joke under the table. Kind of,
or Chekhov's gun, you know.
Yeah,
no,
Chekhov's
just,
alien.
I don't think it won't be a gun. If I've, having watched your films, it might resemble a gun in some ways. But
yeah.
I mean, I had wondered, in fact, what creative decisions, Aaron and Justin, you were involved in, but it sounds like, as you said, it was fairly hands off. But were there any kind of notes or moments of back and forth that you were particularly instrumental in?
Addison?
I can answer that because I remember one thing that Aaron said to me, which I think is what they do in their movies so well, is I think originally in the script, you're right. The thing about horror is like it's hard to surprise people in horror because there's an expectation that the things will go wrong, right? It's like a slasher, people will die, supernatural monster, people will die, things go wrong. So it's like when something starts happy, it's like you're never going to be able to convince somebody that something is not going to go wrong. So I remember in the original script, the two characters, once they find out that that something is wrong, I wrote, okay, we need to go. But Aaron's note was subvert our expectations. And that's the beautiful thing I think about, like, you can lead people down a certain path, but like when you really institute those surprises, that's when scripts really sing. So the biggest note that I did there, like through Aaron's help, was like, subvert that expectation. So create a world in which, I don't know how spoiler I want to be here, so I'm like trying to like talk a little bit.
I think what you're talking about can be said. I think you can almost get it from the trailer. So go ahead.
Yeah, you're so right. So they're basically like they're addicted to the alien fucking, right? And they're so addicted by the time that they find out that he's killing people, they're like, oh no, we should stay. And they both want to stay, like rather than leave because they're so addicted to it and they're also kind of in love with them. And like what that change, I think, unlocked so much, because so often for me, my biggest trouble is right after the halfway point. Obviously, usually something big happens, and that's like when the reveal happens, and it's like, how do you sustain that until you get to the final confrontation? And then once I was just like, oh, they want to stay because they want to fuck him because they're so addicted. It's like heroin. I was like, boom, done. And that was, and also like they were very, and both Justin and Aaron like gave very, very like specific notes in post as well. Obviously also Aaron was our VFX person. So there was that then, but like, I feel like before we made the movie, like notes were great. Like we went off and made the movie. They left me alone, or left us alone. And then in post, they were so helpful and integral into like forming with not like, well, this movie's bad. It's more like, if you just unlock it like this, then it'll sing. And like, doing those notes and watching the story unlock was quite helpful there.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can think about, like my own contribution, something we haven't talked about a whole lot, but, obviously Lou Taylor Pucci's in the film.
Oh, of course. Yes.
And when you first gave Lou the role, Lou's like, okay, I'm going to have to, kind of dance funny and have tentacles and such. We know what this is, right? And I know that for him, that was very, forgive the pun, alien to him. So he basically came in, he lived with me and he shadowed me for several months to learn that character.
Mm-hmm. The dancing, I think, all came from you.
The dancing was all me. Mm-hmm. The haircut was me.
You trained him physically too.
I did.
That's how he got his abs. Yeah.
And
they're just looking at you like you're serious.
Like,
this is killing me.
I'm like, I'm really gonna. I'm like waiting for like when if I should jump in or if we should just like pretend that it's true, but like because it started real because you said Lou Taylor Pucci. I was like, oh yeah, Justin and Aaron like sent him the script and basically accosted him at a party where he thought he was going to hang out with them and said, you should do this movie. So that was definitely very helpful. And then they teed me up, and then Lou was like, "I need you to answer very specifically all the sci-fi questions," because I think he was used to working with Justin and Aaron, who knew everything. And fortunately, I was able to be like, "Oh, well, this is how it works." The funny thing is, like, he didn't ask me about the dancing. He didn't ask me about looking looking ripped, because I never asked him to. But he was just like, "No, I need to know, like, when he goes in the pot and they're gestating, like, how long it is, just like how do these things work, how do the mechanics work?" And like I was like, "Oh, this is how it works," and But yeah, it was all. It was also Olivia Taylor-Dudley, like they, because they've worked with her as well. Our two of our main leads came from the Rustic family, which is wonderful.
Yeah. There's actually one thing that I think is kind of fun. This isn't really contribution, but it was just watching the film evolve. And it was just between the roughly, for what we saw, the first and second cut. And it was interesting where one way to describe the first cut is like Lou in particular, but everyone, but Lou is making a very strong performance choice. He is transforming and he's using this Shakespearean language. He's, it's a risky gamble that is not naturalism. It's easier to just play a version of yourself in some ways. Lou is playing, dyed black hair and, just a different guy. And the first cut, for whatever reason, it did not work. The choices were not selling. They just didn't. They were transparent, and that's, by the way, that's the risk that any actor takes with any movie that they edit. That the edit at some point doesn't honor what you're up to, and then there were obviously everyone knew this was a very early cut. This was like, here's like the movie beginning to end, and that's it. And then there was a tonal shift that was made that I think you can describe better in terms of the horror versus comedy stuff. But there was a tonal shift that was made in the whole edit, not just around Lou, but the whole edit, that kind of says, here's what this movie is. And suddenly Lou completely clicked into place without actually changing what he was doing. It was more saying to the audience, like, this is just a comedy. There's not like a moment where you're supposed to be like genuinely deeply unsettled and afraid. It's more like tension, of course, but and horror elements and stuff, but it's pure fun. And I feel like once you telegraph to the audience that's what the movie was, Lou all started to make sense for me. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, you're so right. And I remember that note, because I think, like, whenever you like include the word horror, you're like, there has to be scares. And the reality was, like, we were having these like long hallway tension filled, like, what's going to happen? But the payoff was a joke, or like, some semblance of that. So it's like, once we're like, let's just like kind of remove the horror vocabulary from the editing point of view and like go back in and really like announce ourselves as a comedy. You're right. It just sang. And that was one of those things that you guys really directly contributed to do. That really helped.
Actually, we learned working with you on that. We could have anticipated this, but we actually did learn that in the realm of horror comedy, the assembly cut is especially going to be wildly different than where you land.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So you want to cry when you see that assembly cut?
Yeah. Whereas, like, if you're doing something that I don't know, look, I fucking love Hereditary. I bet the assembly cut to Hereditary, I bet a lot of it's still scary. Because, you just, it's a lot of air, but it works to build tension. But in horror comedy, you're just kind of like, I know what's happening. Why is it not funny?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we cut that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lou, let's love on Lou Taylor Pucci a little bit.
Yeah. He's he's one of the reasons we have a career, and we obviously keep casting him and stuff. We put him in Daredevil, and we're able to get, I don't want to say we put him in Touch Me, Addison put him in Touch Me, but really it all came back to Spring. And what was really funny is he was put in front of us by XYZ, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were fans of Thumbsucker. We'd recently seen Thumbsucker, which is great. And then it came to us. It was like one of those things where you're like, if you cast this guy for sales value, you can make your movie for $500,000 or whatever it is. But I used to be able to do his laugh pretty well.
Yeah.
And that's something about Lou Taylor Pucci is like he does all these serious roles, but like he's like a total goofball.
Yeah.
Sounds like that, right?
You just did an Elmo laugh, by the way.
Yeah, that's lucid. That's
like
lucid.
an evil, like if you did emo, like it's like if Elmo was like laughing at Rocco. That's what it sounds like.
It's also, I find Lou. I'm going to say something that sounds funny. Is like I find him difficult to direct because he's always good, and so you don't want to change what he's doing because the choice is so thoughtful and good. And you really, really like, meaning he like keeps you really honest as a director, because you better stay on top of what your target is, because what he's going to give you will on the monitor be seductively great. You know?
Yeah, and I just remember it was very funny because I think he's like one of the most natural actors that exists, which is funny that I asked him to play like an alien monster who speaks really ridiculously. But like that really secured like the groundedness of him. But obviously, like there are parts where he had to be really ridiculous, and I was like, go over the top, and he's like, it's going to be too much, but like. His over the top is like adding like 5 or 10% more. And he's like, that was too much. And I'm like, trust me when I say that's exactly. Versus like the guy, Jordan, who plays Craig, if I asked him to go over the top, all of a sudden, like every limb would be flailing and he would be just like doing a worm on the ground to try to be ridiculous. Like, it's like the differences in like working with Lou is like, he was like, that was just too much. And like, you know, and it just never was. And I think it like, it was great because it's one of those things where it's like, I'm being like, by the way, like, we're going to shoot in 3 aspect ratios. All the alien stuff is going to be on set. Like, you have to do a bunch of hip hop dancing. We're going to do all practical effects, homaging to like 60s and 70s Japanese cinema. You know, like, and also I need you to be a little grounded because we're not trying to be pure camp. Let the filmmaking take that. And he was like, okay, I don't know. And so it's like, you know, it's like realizing that. And then he saw the edit and he was like, I understand this whole connection now. But like, there was a lot of trust that we built up front that even if he didn't quite like, you know, like fully, it's all the actors. I mean, everybody. It's like, and then something that I've been learning as a director, right, is it's just like, you have it in your head, but you have to be able to, and like, you know, create and explain certain things and really get into the reasons as to why. And like over the course of this movie, it was like, well, it makes perfect sense to me. I think this is basically just, it's like, I was thinking that I was essentially making like any old movie. Like it could have been like, I wish I could find I need to find a specific one just for this kind of stuff. But it's like, I was making, you know, Hamnet or whatever. That's topical. But like, I just like that's the way my brain works. But it's like, oh, I have to like introduce you to my brain because it definitely does not work in a regular way to come out the way it is. And as the actors just like really bonded so easily and sunk in. And so when we got on set, like everybody was just like so connected and on their stuff that like, I saw what they were doing was exactly what I wanted. And then I just had to reiterate to them being like, this is like the thing that we're making. And once they were able to see a cut, they were like, I understand everything put together. Like I could understand the moving pieces, but like it is showing them that like, not the first cut, I showed them the second cut because the first cut needed some work, but like that was it. We were able to like really get specific and that was really enjoyable as a process.
Addison, can I take us down a country road that I promise everyone wants to hear about? Can you talk about working with the alien puppets?
Sure. We worked with Brussels Effects, who are incredible. Josh and Sierra. They've done project with Justin and Aaron. They've done, they did the most recent Hellraiser reboot, and like they're like both like do like huge projects and low projects, and they also like me like are into tentacles and aliens and stuff. So when we were like, can you do this for this money, they're like, oh yes we can. And speaking of my stick figures, I'll say I'm really proud of this, but it really was them. But they asked me to draw the alien, and I was like, you guys, I can't, I don't know what to do here. And I drew the alien. I basically drew like a teeth like this, like jutting out, like head, tentacles, and feet. And I was like, something like this. And then like they designed it, and it was like, oh my God, you designed exactly what was in my head from this really stupid drawing. And so, sometimes it works. But I think they're just that good that they kind of were able to very easily build upon and create like such a cool thing. But like everything is practical in the movie, from the head explosions to the tentacles to seeing the final monster. It's just a 2-foot tall alien puppet that we submerged in water to get the flowing effects. Sometimes it's not when we did the close-ups, but like everything is like we exploded the alien, all the goo, and the blood and all of it was practical with Justin. Not Justin. Justin, you're lovely, but you didn't do the VFX. Aaron, like coming in and kind of adding it. So it's like a beautiful, like cool, tangible world we wanted to live in. And like it's like your favorite days on set, because even if things go wrong, it's just so fun to see happen. Or like I just remember when we were exploding Noah's head, my friend JJ, they're like, all right, we got one. Like we only got one because we only got one head. It happens, and then we call action and it explodes immediately, and you're like, all right, that's it, cut. And I was like, ugh! But it was perfect. And you're just like, and that's what it's like working with Josh and Sierra, because they loved the movie as much as I did. And I found through Justin and Aaron, and Dave, started collecting these beautiful people who are into the weird and down to get scrappy, because we didn't have a lot of money, but for the vision that I was trying to create, which was a tangible homage to the practical nature of filmmaking, we were able to create exactly what we wanted to make. And it was all because everybody was all on the same page. It's why I don't think filmmaking, I hate a film by credit. It's a film by us. And everybody brought their A game, and especially Josh and Sierra, just murdering it with every time I would, it's ooh, we're opening a body today. Ooh, we're sticking a worm up a something, ooh, we're going to deal with hands being ripped off and blood gags, and my entire car got covered in blood and then kind of totaled it. But that's no big deal. It was worth it for the art. Just such a really great, wonderful thing to do.
Addison, I don't know if I've ever actually got to tell you this, but on this topic of all these makeup effects gags and just the scope, the scale of the movie in general, how big the movie looks and how well executed all of that makeup effects and puppetry and all of that stuff. And it's a collaboration, man, but there's very few people who pull off what you did. With the resources you had to get something that's that big on screen with that many practical effects is just really impressive, man. You should be extremely proud of yourself. I hope you are.
Thank you. No, I am. I really am proud of this and proud of everybody who worked on it. And I do think one thing, I guess I can toot my own horn for a second, is that I think visions are cool, but not if you can't execute them in a way with your budgetary constraints. So yes. It's I was always ready and willing, and actually this is where other people became extremely useful, where it's just all right, well, we can't do this. What can we do that's cooler? You're or what can we do that will create a similar effect or a same type of effect, rather than just trying to do to create an actual 8-foot tall alien where a person's in a costume is going to cost $100,000. We cannot do that because we do not have that money. And it's those creative ways, I think, unlock filmmaking, that it ends up being stronger and more unique, because the smaller the sandbox, the more creative you can be.
Yeah, and there's so many amazing moments that it's almost difficult to know even where do we go from here. But I mean, right. You alluded to the hip hop dancing and just the tone that creates, and it kind of just really divides the film up, so you know exactly what you're going for, and it's absolutely iconic. I've got the dancing in my head right now. So, I mean, I want to know, when did you know this was going to be part of the film? And then logistically, how did you go about choreographing that?
Yeah. We had an amazing choreographer Meredith, who, along with Lou, created the dance, and it was absolutely wonderful. In terms of where it started, it's so funny because I remember being in South Korea at BFAN, which is just a wonderful festival, and had the most thoughtful questions asked. They were what's the metaphor for the alien serum? And they're oh, what's the metaphor for this? And a lot of it, I'd be remiss if I just didn't say like I just thought things were funny. But like, so it's like that's essentially what happens with it. It's why there were tracksuits. It's like why there was a hip hop dancing. It's like why there's all the Duolingo jokes, because I do Duolingo and my streak's almost at 2,000 at this point. So it's like, but it's funny because like, you know, to take it maybe a little deeper, is that it's all kind of a collective part of, you know, we talk about how fun it is. We talk about the comedic nature of it. And like, I kind of formed the script and the tone essentially to recreate what it's like to live in my brain. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, which makes for a very fun time. It doesn't, but like going through therapy with it, doing something called ERP, exposure and response prevention therapy, which essentially makes you face your fears without engaging in the negative thought spiral in which you encounter as like a person with a logical brain. Basically, you're like, I think there's a problem and I'm just going to examine it from every angle until I feel better that actually the problem is not a problem. But OCD, people with OCD or generalized anxiety can't do that because you just get stuck. So something you do in ERP is you expose yourself to it. And one of the main ways that you can do it is by taking the idea and then putting it in an absurd situation. So I usually give the example where it's like, if I'm convinced my boyfriend's going to break up with me, while he's breaking up with me, there are unicorns in the background having a full orgy. And every time he tries to say that a bad thing about me, a unicorn comes and makes a really loud neighing sound. So it's like you write this little short story that nobody will ever see, but then as you start having these thoughts about like, oh, my boyfriend's going to break up with me, all I can think about is a unicorn coming, which is so much better than feeling completely anxious about something that could inevitably come. And that is essentially what Touch Me is as a movie. So you have these ridiculous moments, and then all of a sudden you also really have this like kind of undercurrent metaphor about like addiction and mental illness and, you know, trying to find the quick way out because trying to solve it is just too damn hard. While you have like three people dancing and, you know, heads exploding and like, you know, like evil Laura with her samurai sword, you know, lying all the way through. It's like that to me is like kind of an entire world of what it's like to live within my brain. And that is that is kind of what the tone is. It's like really funny at one time. It's really terrible at another time, but then it goes right back to funny because like sometimes you get such a terrible thought or image in your head. And then like literally like, you know, the next thing that pops into your head is the most ridiculous, AKA unicorn fucking. So it's like, you know, that change happens on a dime within your brain. And that to me was how I kind of came up with everything. There's all these giggles and all these jokes and, you know, all my homages because like I'm, you know, a huge Japanese cinephile and had wanted to do all this like kind of theatrical storytelling, all like Mishima, Life in 4 Chapters, or like, you know, Female Prisoner, or, you know, Houseu, which is obviously one of the big inspirations. Like there's a litany of whatever, but like, you know, doing it through that frame made the most sense to me because it's like I'm theatrically retelling a story of what it's like to live in my own mind.
Weirdly, I wonder. I just saw Synecdoche, New York for the first time, and I just now kind of drew the connection between Touch Me and Synecdoche, just in terms of an exploration of what it feels like to be the creator.
Yeah.
We've spent, you know, rightfully so, a lot of time talking about how impressive the practical effects are in Touch Me and how impressive it is that Addison pulled it off with the schedule he had, the resources. But this talk of this group lovemaking by unicorns, that is a good use of AI.
Yeah, we should fire up the AI engine.
Truly, like that's
really
better.
No more wasted water bottles, please. No.
You can't stop me. I'm going right now.
I think it's actually for this. Here's the thing: it's going to be more gratifying if I drew it with stick figures. Because I think you'll actually understand a little bit more than the AI. It'll feel more real and more tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be able to give it nuance in the shape of the
Definitely
stick.
definitely nuance.
Yeah.
Especially if I draw like a little thought bubble to like see what they're saying. You know what I mean? There's like so many things that like, just give me like a day or two and I'll send it to you for your enjoyment.
This is why we're good collaborators.
You stop us
those are
from
great.
ruining the world with water bottle guzzling AI, and we encourage you to embrace your artistic talent.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You guys are like, please, can we get this back on the rails?
No, this is all good.
Yes.
I mean, any interview where unicorn fucking is mentioned, it's like, well, we're having a good day here.
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, talking about kind of unique things, because you may be shocked that unicorn fucking does not come up a lot in This Is Horror. This might be
Gourmet. Yeah.
this might be the only film to include queef juice in the dialogue. So
yes,
there's another unique part to it.
Yes, of course. My millennialisms, like just making like it is funny because Craig and Joey, Jordan and Olivia, like that to me are like, they're like kind of two sides of my same psyche of like kind of the worst inclinations of who I am as a person. Obviously you'll see a lot of similarities between Jordan and me, or Craig and me, just in my humor. I swear I'm not that terrible, but in my brain sometimes I think I am. And so like that was just like that thing of like, what would it be like, if my worst self, or at least my most damaged self, like went through this journey, and what would I really do if put in this situation if I was promised paradise? And what would I give up and sacrifice, and how morally can I be compromised in order to get it when it's literally the promise of paradise? And of course, that has to include the use of queef juice, and any other chungusy things that I love to include when talking about the worst iterations of myself.
This was called the horniest movie at Sundance, and I think you can wear that with pride, because no joke, I do think there's of course a shying away of exactly how to depict and talk about sexuality in film. There's a lot of think pieces talking about it, and it feels like a romp is a good way to go about it, whereas also though this is talking about some weirdly heavy stuff in a really lighthearted way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, intimacy is such an interesting thing in film, especially when it's like, it's funny because, we think about hentai, right? Which literally translates in Japanese to English. It translates to pervert. It's literally what hentai means. And a lot of people are like, the internet, the worst parts of the internet are like, well, we know the director's kink. And I was like, hey, one, don't kink shame. Two, it is like a very, I find the storytelling behind the creation of hentai very fascinating. Obviously, there's like the old painting, The Fisherman's Wife, getting eaten out by an octopus. But there's this movie, very blasphemous. I really do not recommend watching it, called Orochiku Doji. That is the first iteration of hentai, like in anime, and it was created around to get around the censors in Japan, because you couldn't show anything below the waist. You had to blur it. But tentacles are, they're arms. They're not penises. So that creation of that kind of like completely set for like a very like, wave of like, so like through the repressed society became the more kind of niche interests to pop up. The irony is, like in the 60s and 70s, some of the biggest companies in Japan were producing a large swath of the pink films that we see today. Like Toei, they were doing these like crazy, wild, colorful, theatrical looking films that were filled with sex and comedy and revenge and blood, and there's kind of something so cool to see like that kind of counterculture being created by I don't even know if it's a counterculture, but it's like that can directly lead to like the furthering of like the explorations of kinks and everything. But they're big budget and they're good storytelling, especially the ones with female revenge. Of course, there's some that are too blasphemous or too much for me to watch in terms of like what I can think of. But like that, to me, that kind of like world is so juicy. And they, telling stories where they're not shying away from the fact that they're telling it on sets. They're telling stories. That's what we're doing as filmmakers. We're telling stories. So for this, it's like, this is a story. We're telling it as a story, and we're not pretending that we're not in a movie. We're telling it like they did in the 60s and 70s, where it didn't matter if something was like beautifully VFX. It's actually more real in a way, because you see the actors react to it as if it was real. And obviously, who doesn't love seeing real tentacles and real head explosions, and everything like that. I think I got off topic, but like I am really glad and really love with what I said. So, it's okay.
I also just realized there's something we're not embracing in the marketing campaign that we need to get on. No joke, which is I've heard that Japanese pornography has censorship of the private parts, and I feel like we don't lean into that at all in our like trailer materials and stuff like that. And I feel like we've got to give that a shot.
Yeah. We'll look into that. Yeah, we'll text our people.
Thank you. I'll call the people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that censorship, it's still here today. I mean, if you go on a Japanese website, an adult website, they will have blurred out the private parts, as you put it.
Yeah.
And, even the same if you go on social media and they can tell you're looking from Japan. Now, I think it would be more interesting if they replaced them with a tentacle rather than blurring them out. But unfortunately, that has not happened yet.
Michael, are you in Japan?
I am in Japan, yeah.
Oh, you're in Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is fascinating, kind of relegating to like the creation of social media and how certain like huge companies have made certain things illegal, like to say, and through the illegality of it comes new terms, new definitions, and new forms of expression. So like the act of banning something immediately will cause a new thing to emerge. Like very simply, it's like, can't say, kill yourself. So you have to say unalive. Like all of these like types of words that we create, people will find a way around it to convey the same thing. And that's essentially how hentai was created. And I find that fascinating because it's like trying to control something that already exists. It's like the same with this movie, right? It's just like, it goes back to like this, I forget that they're called like the scaries, back in the UK when they were banning all the horror films and they had censors, it's like the more you try to remove things that like maybe grander society includes, then like the weirder things that will come up, which is both good and bad because you get more underground art and you also get, the dark web. But yeah.
All right. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you all. And I mean, Touch Me, it's such a thought-provoking, it's such a funny, it is a film that is brilliant on so many levels. So I really do encourage people to go out and to watch it. I mean, there's so many things we haven't even spoken about. We haven't spoken about sugar-free lemonade powder. We haven't spoken about shit coming from the shower. So there's
that really happened in real life. So that's where where that came from. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to do something like this again to talk about some of your other films. But for now, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, and I'm totally down whenever, if you want to do an extended whatever about this stuff, because I can talk about this movie forever. So, whatever, Lord knows it's been in my brain for years. So finally getting to yell about it has been very cathartic in a way. All thanks to Justin and Aaron and Rustic and my crew and my cast and everybody who worked on the movie, and to Sundance for giving it some semblance of a lift in South by Southwest and all the other festivals that have programmed us. So I'm grateful and optimistic, and hope that the freaks will find this and they'll be my people.
All right. Thank you again.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead, and Addison Heimann on This Is Horror. Join us again next time when we'll be resuming interviewing just one person, and we will be welcoming back Eric LaRocca to talk about his wonderful new book, Wretch. But if you would like to get that and every other episode ahead of the crowd, please become a patron at patreon.com/This Is Horror. In addition to hearing all episodes of This Is Horror first, you can submit questions to each and every guest. And if you're listening to this at the time of release, you still have until Saturday afternoon to submit a question for Eric LaRocca. Now, becoming a patron is also the best way to support me and to keep This Is Horror podcast going. So plainly, if you like This Is Horror, and if you want more This Is Horror, become a patron at patreon.com/This Is Horror. Okay, before I wrap up, a quick advert break.
From the host of This Is Horror podcast comes a dark thriller of obsession, paranoia, and voyeurism. After relocating to a small coastal town, Brian discovers a hole that gazes into his neighbor's bedroom. Every night she dances and he peeps. Same song, same time, same wild and mesmerizing dance. But soon Brian suspects he's not the only one watching, and she's not the only one being watched. They're Watching is The Wicker Man meets Body Double with a splash of Suspiria. They're Watching by Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorella is available from thisishorror.co.uk, Amazon, and wherever good books are sold.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This Is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio.
Well, to end the episode, I would like to finish with a quote. And this is from Tennessee Williams, who I know is particularly dear to our next guest, Eric LaRocca. So, here we go. I think no more than a week after I started writing, I ran into the first block. It's hard to describe it in a way that will be understandable to anyone who is not a neurotic. I will try. All my life I have been haunted by the obsession that to desire a thing or love a thing intensely is to place yourself in a vulnerable position, to be a possible, if not a probable, loser of what you most want. Let's leave it like that. That block has always been there and always will be, and my chance of getting or achieving anything that I long for will always be gravely reduced by the interminable existence of that block. Powerful quote from Tennessee Williams, and certainly something to ponder. And with that said, that does it for another episode of This Is Horror. So until next time with Eric LaRocca, take care of yourself. Be good to one another. Read horror. Keep on writing. And have a great, great day.
This is Horror Podcast.